know, this is Congressional Update with Ayanna Pressley, U.S. Representative, District 7 in Massachusetts. Good morning. How are you doing? I'm Sarah Fishman. How are you doing, Congresswoman?
Good morning. I'm great, Sarah. Good to be with you.
So we got a lot on our plate. Let's start with a win. Student debt relief. This is something you've worked on for a while. Can you talk about what you had advocated for and then what the president has done and how the two are different?
Sure. Well, this certainly is a victory for the millions of borrowers burdened by what is nearly a $2 trillion crisis. And for 2 years, I've been in close thought partnership and strategic counsel, working closely with Senator Warren, Leader Schumer, and really a broad and diverse coalition that we effectively built over the last 2 years of borrowers, grassroots organizers, civil rights organizations like the NAACP, union families and organized labor, from the AFL-CIO to the American Federation of Teachers, to the National Education Association, the NEA, United Auto Workers. We were able to build this broad and diverse coalition and really had to make the case for just how people from every walk of life are burdened by this debt. There was a very harmful narrative and mischaracterization that sought to fringe this issue and to marginalize who's impacted. But because of the coalition that we built, we were able to tell the full story, that this is educators who've taken on this debt because they wanted to teach our babies, and now are raising young families and couldn't afford childcare and the monthly minimums. This is for senior citizens on fixed incomes. The fastest growing constituency of student debtors are 50 plus. And in fact, I have 76-year-olds in my district on fixed income still paying student loans. Wow. And of course, a whole generation, millennial and Gen Z, choked by this debt, unable to start or grow a family, purchase a home, start a business. And of course, this is not only an economic justice issue, Sarah, it's a racial justice issue, because the burden of debt is disproportionately borne by Black and brown borrowers, in particular, Black student borrowers, who have been denied the ability to build generational wealth, because historically, Black Americans were locked out of every federal relief program, from the GI Bill to the Homestead Act to the New Deal. And so with what President Biden has done in heeding our calls over these last 2 years, in addition to the successful 3-time pause on student loan payments during the pandemic that we made possible because of this coalition and because of our vigilance, for those making $125,000 or less and who are Pell Grant recipients, they will receive $20,000 in relief. And for those non-Pell Grant recipients, they'll receive $10,000. And what this means from the racial justice components in terms of closing the racial wealth gap and alleviating that burden disproportionately falling on the most marginalized is that 1 in 4 Black student borrowers will have their debt zeroed out completely. And so we've been hearing those stories and collecting them from my constituents and also online. So Sarah, my focus at this time, while we are still in the final student loan payment pause during the pandemic, which will go through to December 31st, is making sure in real time that we're seeing how is this implementation going. We want to ensure that it is efficient, that it is equitable, and that it is not onerous for the borrower. And so in October, people will be able to apply to verify their income. And then within 4 to 6 weeks, they should begin to see that cancellation for many, and for some really meaningful,
pretty quick,
transformative relief. Yes, absolutely. And very timely. You know, the Congress did pass the Inflation Reduction Act, which is already making some strides to alleviate the burden of inflation and the pinch that working families are feeling. But we know that hardship is still very real, and every penny and every dollar counts. And so this is very timely as we come out of the pinch of inflation and continue to do the work of recovery from this pandemic-induced recession. And yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
sorry. I was just going to say, is there also an income cap? You know, you don't have to pay more than 5% of your income. Is that also part of what Biden signed into executive order? That you didn't, what you had to pay out?
That's correct. That's
Monthly.
correct. And that certainly that will go a long way. And I do want to just also provide a resource, Sarah, that folks should go to studentaid.gov/debt relief. Again, studentaid.gov/debt relief to sign up so they can be notified automatically when this becomes available. And again, the White House expects the application for folks to verify their income will be ready in early October. And then borrowers should see their debt canceled as soon as 4 to 6 weeks after applying. So again, my focus right now is to make sure that people are aware that the final student loan payment pause, which we fought for and the administration was responsive to, will go until December 31st, which is great because it will allow us to in real time see how this student debt relief, if that process is one that is equitable and streamlined. And of course, since I've been leading this fight in the House and in that I serve on the Oversight Committee, I will be using the reach of that committee to make sure that that is exactly what happens.
We can put up at the end of the show that information so that that'll further reinforce that's where people can go, because then this will be seen hopefully by more people and people will have access and hopefully get that relief.
Yes, and I'm really grateful to President Biden for delivering this life-changing and really long overdue relief, Sarah. I'm grateful for everyone who shared their story, many of them who shared it in secret because they felt great shame about this debt. And I told every person that shared their story that this was not their shame to carry. That's why I don't call it debt forgiveness, because there's nothing to be forgiven. They've done nothing wrong. If we truly live in a meritocracy and believe that education is the equalizer, they did only what we've told them to do. And that's why they deserve this hand up, not a hand out. And I look forward to continuing to partner with this administration to address the root causes that created this crisis, you know, the inaffordability of higher education and that cost has increased by 150%. So we know that this does not solve that root problem, but is a bold step in the right direction while we continue to fight for those investments in Pell Grants, in tuition-free community college, and in our historically Black colleges and universities, and continuing that fight to fight for higher education as the public good that it is, and that we should invest federally.
Yes, and particularly, it seems like the professions where this is least likely, where you're least likely to have the wealth to quickly pay down the debt. It's a problem. My niece is a social worker, and this affects her. And she had COVID, and she burst out into happiness when she found out about this because it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So I love hearing that. And thank you for making the point that we were making in our negotiations up until 7 a.m. the morning of this rollout. I was in negotiations with the White House with Chief of Staff Ron Klain, making that exact argument that income is not wealth. And so we were pushing for this to be as ambitious and aspirational as possible, because we wanted something that would go as far and as deep as the herd. And again, we cannot give a short shrift to this bold step in the right direction, but the fight and the work continues.
So there's widely varying estimates as to how much this will cost. Can you tell me what your understanding of what it'll cost the government is, or how that's going to be handled?
Well, again, I think, ultimately, whatever the cost, it is one that is worthwhile and is going to yield an incredible return on investment, because people will be able to invest in the economy, to build wealth. And again, there's been a huge psychological toll and impact for those who've been burdened by this debt for years. And so this is transformative policy with life-changing benefits that will be felt by millions. Understanding, Sarah, that 40% of those who are burdened by this debt did not even complete their degree. And, this is money, since most people are not paying on these loans, that was never going to be recouped. So in moving this way by executive action, at least we will collectively reap the benefits of people making that investment in local economy and building wealth. And so, it's unfortunate that there are some out of touch economists who really are just disconnected from how hard this has been for people day to day. This was, as I represent the largest contingent of community health centers of any congressional district in the country. And as I was meeting with the president and CEOs of our community health centers, and they were talking about workforce shortages, given this mass resignation and retirement, on the heels of these very heavy 3 years and tumultuous times with the pandemic. I said, what can I do to support you when it comes to workforce shortages? And their answer was consistently cancel student debt. So this is about the stabilization of families, our workforce, our economy.
Right. So since we're talking about money, let's talk more about money. You've brought some money to Somerville, helped bring some money to Somerville for the pumping station project at Poplar Street. I can't almost say that, it's too many pieces. So can you explain what that is and what you've been able to bring to the project?
Sure. So this was as a result of a year's long worth of advocacy and partnership with my district office, my DC office, and working closely with Somerville municipal leadership. And this is a part of our community project funding advocacy, what used to be called earmarks. Right. And so in total, we delivered $8 million through community project funding to the Massachusetts 7th Congressional District. And that includes the Poplar Street Pump Station and art farm rather. See, I'm struggling to say that fast.
It's complicated and it has a lot of parts. So.
Yes, it does. Okay. So, and I think, I don't know, every time I'm thinking climate, sustainability, and then that takes me to the earth, and somehow I keep saying but it's art farm. Okay. So
I've been doing that too. Doing that.
So you keep saying that.
I think it's also because kids in my generation, at least, we had ant farms.
Yes, well, I'm dating myself too, so that's true for me as well. But so again, it was a year's worth long of advocacy, and we were able to secure $2.5 million in funding for the Poplar Street Pump Station and art farm project in Somerville. So it's an intersectional project that serves a dual purpose of climate resiliency and also open space. And so the pump station aims to provide critical stormwater, climate change management infrastructure below ground. And so this is going to help prevent against flooding, sewer overflows, etc. And it's also going to create 10,000, we're just on the heels of Labor Day, so 10,000 good paying union jobs and generate millions in state and local tax revenue. And then on the art side of things, one of the reasons why I'm so proud to represent Somerville, many don't know my long-standing advocacy and relationship in the arts and culture space. I used to chair the Committee on Arts, Film, Humanities, and Tourism when I was on the Boston City Council. I'm very passionate about arts and culture and the creative economy. And so the Art Farm Project aims to help Somerville create that much needed community space and arts facilities that are designed to foster community engagement, learning, and joy and creativity above ground. And again, this community project funding, previously called earmarks, we haven't had this funding available and this opportunity for over a decade. And I'm very proud that every project that I submitted to the Appropriations Committee, after, again, a year's long worth of advocacy to the committee and to the chair and just staying on top of it, all 10 of my projects were approved, totaling an $8 million.
Oh, that's a good record there. 10
Thank
for
you
10.
Well, we went into it and we knew the odds were against us because I was a freshman. I don't serve on the committee of jurisdiction, and there's a lot of dynamics that go into this. But because of the thought partnership of the district and municipal leadership, and this really modeling the best kind of partnership, those projects that are community driven, government endorsed, and invested.
And it's such an interesting project because part of it is gardening and performance space and art space, but it's also going to, as you said, separate rain and sewer water. It's going to, Union Square is known for flooding. It's going to do two very different things at the same time. And my understanding is that I was talking to my city councilor yesterday, and she said that the council has approved some of the funding already that the city has to provide, but they're going to vote on another portion of it coming up. So she couldn't give me dollar amounts, but some of it has been authorized, and not all of it, but not all of it. So let's switch gears a little bit and talk about Tuesday's primaries. Mm-hmm. Were there any results that surprised you?
I don't make predictions or projections because I've been on both sides of that equation, Sarah. Yeah. So I know better than that. I think, look, the electorate has spoken, and now we move on to the general, and I'll be, squarely focused. First, I want to say I'm very honored and humbled to have earned the continued confidence and trust and partnership of the Massachusetts 7th. I'm proud to be the Democratic nominee once again. And certainly, even though I was uncontested, I still ran a very robust campaign because we believe in the work of engagement and mobilization and voter education year round, and not just when I'm in cycle. In fact, the issue of student debt is one that I was door knocking on for months in order to educate people on the issues and to move the dial on the discourse, because there was so much misinformation out there. And we believe in proactive constituent services, doing wellness check-ins to our district, particularly to our elder constituents, just to check in, how are you doing, and making sure that they know what we're fighting for on their behalf and connecting them to any resources or services they might need. And so now we're on to the general. I'll continue that work of engagement and mobilization, doing everything possible to make sure that Maura Healey takes over that corner office. I'm looking forward to her leadership on many issues. She and I have partnered in her role as Attorney General, from human trafficking to student debt to combating polluters to taking on the pharmaceutical industry, contributing to the opioid epidemic. And now we continue that partnership with her if we do our job in the corner office. And I know one of the issues she will make a priority, which has long been a priority of mine, and that is transportation and transit justice. It is really at the intersect of everything that we're talking about here today, from our sustainability goals to closing the racial wealth gap, to economic justice. It's just so critical that transportation is safe, that it is accessible, that it is affordable, that it is rapid and reliable. And that is particularly for the many of our most marginalized who depend 100% on public transit. And because of decades of mismanagement and underinvestment and deferred maintenance, we found ourselves in a situation having to choose between service and safety. And now that burden is being felt by riders, which I think was avoidable and is unfortunate, but that's where we find ourselves. And so I'm really looking forward to her leadership in the corner office. And of this entire primary season, I will just say it was an honor to share the ballot with a historic field of candidates. The diversity in representation is unprecedented.
Well, we could have had all the Democratic winners for statewide office be female. Is that right? That could have been the case. That's true.
And again, it was just unprecedented. Unprecedented, the diversity both in gender, in race and culture, and lived experience. geographic diversity. It was just an incredible ticket. And I will say, as someone who formerly served on the Boston City Council and is the first woman of color elected to that body, and for 2 of those terms, the only woman serving, many people did not appreciate the City Council as a pipeline or an incubator of talent, and where people went directly from the council or after having served on the council, those options were limited. And now, in short order, to have seen, me come from the Boston City Council, to see Michelle Wu now serving as the mayor of the city of Boston, to see Andrea Campbell now elected as our attorney general, I think is an incredible testament to the deep bench of dedicated public servants and the caliber of talent and exemplary people that we have.
Yes, yes. So I was going to ask you about something else, but let's stick with the transit first, because you were talking about that. So the T, lots of challenges right now, right? The orange line is closed. Part of the green line is closed. The federal government has issued directives saying this, and this have to be changed. Is there any one thing, and this might be hard to answer, what bothers you the most about the challenges that lie ahead? What do you think needs to be addressed first?
What bothers me the most is that I believe this was preventable. But again, because of decades of mismanagement and chronic underinvestment and deferred maintenance, we were at a crossroads where we had to choose between safety or service. And so in that instance, you're always going to prioritize safety. And so that means that there are going to be major disruptions for people. I commend Mayor Wu and other leaders for everything they're doing to try to mitigate this disruption by having ambassadors in position that can direct people. We certainly have been using our social media platforms to make sure people have all the information they need to make their commute as efficient as and rapid as possible. But this is incredibly disruptive, and especially heading into a new school year. And again, for the most marginalized who depend on public transit 100% to get to employment, to get to a healthcare appointment, to get to school, to get to childcare. A couple of weeks ago, I was visiting Tufts Medical Center, which is really a crown jewel in the Massachusetts 7th as a teaching hospital and world renowned, honestly. And I was visiting their NICU unit and met a mother there who had given birth to twins. Their names are Alliance and Amazing, I think, and very unique names. And they had been nursed to health, given the extraordinary care at Tufts Medical Center in the NICU. And she said, I don't have a car. And obviously Tufts Medical Center is on the orange line. And she said, I have to come here now. I'm so glad that my babies are healthy enough to leave, but we still have to come regularly for a number of follow-up appointments. And she said, I have no idea how I will navigate this. No one in my immediate or extended family has access to a car. And so I'm going to be navigating this commute with my twins in a double stroller. And I'm very nervous about it, given what has happened to the orange line. And that's just one story. The other thing I would just contextualize here, Sarah, is that we know that we're in a fight to make sure that our Boston public schools do not go into receivership. And so there are many metrics that they have to hit in order to stay, solvent and meeting those academic metrics. And this disruption is certainly not helpful to parents or to students. And so, given leadership failures, now riders are bearing this burden. And that is why myself and Senator Markey have called for the T to be free. I mean, we've been advocating for that anyway. We've been legislating for that anyway, because we believe we should invest in public transit as the public good that it is. But at least during this period of disruption, the federal funds are certainly there. I think at one point, the estimates were about $40 million for 1 month. There's a lot of ARPA funds and other federal funds that we delivered during the pandemic that has gone unused. And I think that we should be doing everything possible to alleviate this hardship for riders. And
it's very parallel to the debt relief in the sense of during the pandemic, because here you have limited resources during a time of challenge. So it's perhaps even more appropriate to make sure people get where they're going. And I was reading that, people were getting up at 5:30, 6 in the morning, and their children were still getting to school 2 hours late, an hour and a half late. And I just don't see how, that's a.
Yeah, I mean, transit, this is why I'm a co-founder of the Future of Transportation Caucus, where we're fighting for federal investment in multimodal infrastructure, including public transit, and fighting for federal dollars to be stewarded in a way that centers equity, accessibility, connectivity, sustainability. Transit is a disability justice issue. It's a racial justice issue. It's an economic justice issue, and again, it's a sustainability issue. So we need to be focused on increasing ridership, given the stressors of climate change, not decreasing it. And that is exactly what this will do. We've been hearing reports of increased traffic and congestion. And again, it's just incredibly disruptive and troublesome and was avoidable. So I hope that given the recent federal report, that we will see the new governor take those recommendations very seriously. And again, if we do our job and our new governor is Maura Healey, I know that she will do exactly that.
So this is a hard thing to parse, because there are always going to be winners and losers in an overall shift in service. But the buses are going to be changed. There's this whole bus project. And I was trying to look at the before and after pictures, and it was like plate of spaghetti 1, plate of spaghetti 2. And I couldn't tell. And there's definitely a bus line that runs along the spine of the southern part of your district that probably is underserved, but I couldn't tell from the website page. And but by contrast or whatever, there's been all this discussion online here in Somerville about the fact that the number 89 bus, which runs along Broadway east-west, has grocery stores at either end, that's going to be eliminated. So people have pushed me to ask you about this. Is there anything you could do about that? And how does one decide, where to push for something versus not, given that no area is going to get everything it really needs?
Well, it's not easy because, as lawmakers, we're often presented with these false, binary, unjust choices. Access to transportation should be equitable and a reality for everyone, because again, it is essential to navigating the city and this Commonwealth, and people getting to and from work, to school, to childcare and healthcare appointments. And we know that there were already many inequities. As far as what can I do, I really seek to use every tool available to me. The power of the pen, which I've done as a lawmaker with Senator Markey, in our Freedom to Move Act, and advocating for fair, free transit, in my co-founding the Future of Transportation Caucus, but also outside of the power of the pen, to use the power to write laws, but the power of my letterhead. And so, perhaps there are phone calls that I can make. The T is a state issue, but I've never abdicated my responsibility to lead on those issues of consequence to my district, whether they're municipal or state issues. And I have weighed in during comment periods in the past. So I will look further into that. We have been successful in stopping some of these previous cancellations from the Jamaica Plain area, from Randolph. Those are things I did as a city councilor and also as a member of Congress. So I thank you for bringing that to my attention, and we'll just continue to chip away at this at every angle, because it's just, I feel like it's an oxymoron to say transportation is important. It's essential.
Right. On that note, we have to conclude. This has been Congressional Update with Ayanna Pressley. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.